Last week, Ukrainians elected a pro-European billionaire candy tycoon as their new president, Petro Poroshenko. His win comes 3 months after street protests ousted the country's Kremlin-backed leader, Viktor Yanukovych. Canada sent over 300 volunteers to monitor the process as election observers. Stavros Rugas was one of them. He co-founded the Kitchener startup Media Spot Me and returned home last week. He joins me now to talk about the experience. Good morning, Stavros.
Good morning.
As an election observer, when you got there, what were your responsibilities?
Yeah, well, see, I was, there were two missions. Canada sent a separate mission, and I was with the OSCE, which is the international force, about 57 countries. So you get there, you get a briefing, and then you get sent to the region. In my case, I was in the northeast, close to the Russian border, in a city called Sumy. Day before the election, you go around, check out the different polling stations, decide where you're going to go in the morning, and then you really wake up early, and you're there in the opening to start for the election day. So you're there to observe, meaning that if something happens, you just kind of write it down, or if it doesn't happen, which is also what you're looking for, you're not necessarily looking for a problem, you're not there to be involved. So you're there to look at essentially the procedures of the election, and then go from there and note it.
Is that hard though? Just to if you see something wrong, is that hard to just observe and not act immediately?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of the essence of being an observer. You've got local scrutineers. You know, when we have an election coming up, I'm going to be working on the Ontario election as well. So it comes from that experience. Is that there are locals that are being local observers. So they're more likely to get involved. You're coming to someone else's country, you're sitting back, you're just looking, trying to get an assessment across the country. So as a group, in my case, I was part of the OSCE, it's looking at across the country to get a sense of how things are going. So it's not that you're just trying to get that particular polling station and trying something. So it's getting an overall assessment of how things are.
How were you received there?
Well, I mean, this is this is my fourth time being in Ukraine, and people are surprisingly nice. I mean, in the sense that I don't mean that they're not generally nice, but even when you come into a polling station, I know if you probably came to Canada, people would be a bit surprised. Well, why would you come here to take a look, as if something's wrong? But there was a lot on the line in this election, and there has been for a few years. So I think generally there's an appreciation that, hey, if people are showing up like that internationally, that the election matters. There's something going on here. And if you are doing that role as an observer and not interfering at any level, and you do that over the years, like the OSCE has done, then you develop a certain level of respect, a certain level of recognition that you're actually trying to be an honest broker, and that's it's tough to do.
Why was this important for you to volunteer to do this?
I guess I care about elections. I think they matter. They're important, including the one coming up here in Ontario. And it's a background. I spent time in the former Soviet Union. I had a real interest in Russian. Learned to speak Russian, and I'm not Ukrainian or Russian. I have no ties to that world, within my family. And it kind of evolved into something I did the first time, and then I really feel like it offers some value. Again, a small amount. I mean, it's there conducting an election. It's just to help build up those core institutions, which are really the essence of building a strong functioning society, so you can do other things like healthcare and education and those kind of things. So it's just a small piece of the puzzle, and it's not kind of overnight. It's little by little. You run them in succession, and over time you develop an understanding of how things work.
Well, and you've done that. I mean, you've been there for five times, right? Have you not?
Yeah. So 4 times there, and then I had a fortune as well to another part of the former Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, being involved in an election there as well. And you start to look at how things work. There's certain certain things that are common over time, and you start to look at it. And the big thing is you start to look at what is just a simple procedural mistake. Because I can tell you, you go to the June 12th election here, and I'll be working on it. We all make little mistakes. Now, you didn't sign closing the ballot box. There was a seal. It wasn't signed in the right spot. And that's different than also than somebody trying to do some kind of fraudulent activity. And it's that kind of balance where, hey, we're all trying to do a better job. They're human beings, some are better trained than others. And that happens, kind of anywhere, versus someone who's trying to undermine the vote. And that's, those are obviously very different things, but also, they're both important in their own way.
And where you were in Sumy, that's only about 40 kilometers from the Russian border. Did you feel any tension there?
No, I mean, this is I would say how the OSCE international group assessed it is that, the election was in really good shape, but you had groups from Donetsk and Luhansk, those two areas that are having major conflict that we always see on the news. So they didn't have a chance to vote, essentially. So you can't say the election was by any means ideal when, a large percentage of citizens didn't have a chance to, cast their ballot. But that's kind of it. Is there's that world and there's the rest of Ukraine. And this area of Ukraine is Ukrainian, Russian-speaking, like many parts of the kind of central eastern part of the country, like it would be in Kiev. So the idea is, if you speak to someone in a language, either Ukrainian or Russian, people often just answer in that language. So there's not as much baggage as you would think. And really, yeah, you're right, 40 kilometers from the Russian border, and you didn't feel that. It's just, life was fairly normal, and it was actually less eventful than I think people expected. And in a funny way, people were probably expecting a bit more, action, if you will. But that's kind of the idea of the observer saying, I'm not looking for action. I'm just looking to see what's going on there. And it was actually, things went... they were quite uneventful. But again, that's, I'd say, most of the country. But then there are parts of the country just in the news which are, to say the least, problematic. They did not send the OSCE, I think the Canadian delegation, but the OSCE delegation did not send anybody to Luhansk or Donetsk. So the fact that there's not even an observer there speaks to some of the issues there.
Stavros Rougas, I want to thank you so much for telling us your story this morning.
Thank you.